Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Big Bros podcast. My name is Ilan, and I'm joined by my lovely friend and co-host, Jeremy. But more importantly, we are joined with Clint Stanaway, who is one of Australia's most recognisable media voices, known for his long-standing career as weekend host on The Today Show and sports presenter on 9 News, and as a newsreader and co-host on Nova 100's Jase and Lauren breakfast show. How are you going, Clint?
Really well.
Awesome.
No, big admirer. I've been watching from afar for a little while now, so it's nice to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on. A big admirer. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
That's
A lot of intrigue.
Just intrigue.
Yeah. What sort of questions might be coming my way?
Well,
Can't wait.
Well, exactly. That's going to be the aim of the show because normally you're the one asking the questions, mate.
It's a bit strange.
Yeah.
Like sitting here being peppered by questions instead of asking the big, hard-hitting questions. So bring it on.
No, fair enough. Well, look, we're a mixture of a bit of light-hearted questions, some more deep and reflective questioning, but ultimately we like to keep things pretty chilled and light.
Do you love doing this?
We fucking love it.
Yeah, great. What is it? Do you reckon it's... Because I dare say you're probably a bit like me. I love my job because I'm sort of just... I've got a real intrigue factor when it comes to people.
Yeah.
Like just... Because people are just wild, weird. Everyone's got their sort of... Everyone's a little bit... Well, I'm quite eccentric, but I'm also a little bit introverted as well. So just learning more about people is really cool. Like whenever someone comes into the Nova studio, for instance, it's like, this is a fun job.
Oh, God, yeah. And do you reckon that was the intrigue that led you to even starting your career out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you know from a young age?
Well, I've always been... I love people. I love surrounding myself with, what I think are good people, obviously. But I was always super motivated to get into media. So I didn't really know initially what sort of media I wanted to sort of get into, but I was drawn to television straight away. Just like probably the bright lights of TV. I could see myself on television, all the rest of it. But I actually did work experience at Channel 9 when I was 16.
In school, year 10?
In year 10. Yeah, that was it, and that was my first experience. I'm like, right, that's what I want to do. Like, it's really cool. And, I've now been at Channel 9. I got my first job at 9 at 18. I was a fresh 18-year-old.
Yeah.
Was about to start uni, and I've been there ever since.
Wow.
So 24 years.
And did you study like...
How old are you boys?
25.
Okay.
I feel like now you need a qualification for these sorts of things. The rules are a little bit more rigid.
Sort of.
Sort of. Back then, was it like that?
Back then, probably in television especially and in newsrooms, you could sort of come through the ranks like cadetships. Newspapers, TV and radio all had them where, you didn't have to have a uni degree or a qualification. You sort of rolled your sleeves up and you sort of learnt on the job. So you became a cadet. It has changed. It's sort of more, it's uni-based, you got to get your degree, all that sort of thing. But what we're finding at the moment is, I say kids, but uni students are now getting jobs straight out of uni in major metropolitan newsrooms. So it's become a bit of a young person's game, to be honest. They're really weeding out the old fellas.
Wow.
Which is interesting because I'm about to leave Channel 9. So.
We'll
far
get
from
into
an
it.
old fella, mate. Far from an old fella. But with that pathway, I'm intrigued, and I'm sure the young people listening will also be. You started with, like you just said, work experience. 16 years old, you had your work experience there. Was it a situation of you finished year 12 and you shot 9 an email and said, I'm finished, I want to see what you have in store for me, let's go from there?
I wish I was proactive as that.
Yeah.
But no. So I had a bit of a cheat, and often we joke about it's not what you know, it's who you know. And one of Dad's best mates at the time was the operations manager at Channel 9. And he was short on staff one Christmas, New Year. And I was actually on schoolies when I had a call from Dad to say, you've got to call Scott now because he's got some work for you at Channel 9. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Gold Coast or Byron?
And, no, actually, I think I was down the coast. I was
down
in
the coast?
Apollo Bay.
Apollo Bay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Were you in the state to take that phone call?
A great way. A great headspace then. But I'm like, sure, okay.
Yeah.
So as it turns out, that was my first job in TV. It was a junior position. I was a researcher, so a news librarian. And what we did was we used to archive the news. But what it enabled me to do was to get, my foot in the door.
Yep.
And then by virtue of that, learn about all the sort of different parts of TV news gathering. And then I was able to tailor my uni course based on what I was learning practically on the job, which was pretty cool, and earn money for it. I thought I was a king. I was earning $20 an hour, whereas all my mates were earning $10 and $12 an hour working at Hoyt's in Chadstone. It was like, this is cool stuff. So pretty cool way to start.
And this is the early 2000s.
That was the early 2000s.
It's a different time. Those were the days. Well,
In fact, it was 2001.
2001.
Well, we like to often make niche football references. So we're trying. So who would be a niche footy reference from the early 2000s in the Melbourne side?
In the Melbourne side.
Melbourne player, because you're a D's fan.
Yes.
Yeah, likewise.
Guy Rigoni.
Gus Rigoni. He was.
Gus Rigoni.
He would have been, yeah.
Who else would have been niche?
I mean, I've never even heard of him, so pretty niche.
David Neitz was captain. I'm trying to think who was more niche. I reckon that'll just about do it. Anthony Ingerson played the role of a beautiful crunching defender.
Oh, wait, Carroll?
Yeah, Nathan Carroll. He was probably more sort of mid to late 2000s.
I mean, I only started following the D's probably from memory when I was like 5-6 years old. So I remember one of the first few games that I watched.
My sympathies to you, by the way.
Yeah, well, look, I don't have to wait too long for a flag.
Go out and win a premiership, and we can't see it, can we? We can't see it live. That is just your typical Melbourne supporting story.
I still believe in the Norm Smith curse, to be honest. I just think it's more that we're not going to see a flag at the J.
Everyone's like, okay, 2021, we've broken the Norm Smith curse, and then Norm's like,
not at the J.
COVID.
Yeah.
That's it. So I don't know. It's because you do a lot of sports presenting.
Yeah.
But you didn't start off in that domain. Was sports presenting an area you wanted to get into?
I've always loved sport. Always played sport growing up, and always loved going to the footy, watching the cricket in the summer, the tennis, all that sort of stuff. So and being in Melbourne,
how can you escape it?
You are on the doorstep of some of the biggest and best sporting venues. So I was always motivated to probably get to become a sport presenter, or a sport host. But initially I started out in general news. So covering some of the, let's be honest, when you switch your TV on for the 6 o'clock news, it's not often the news leads with a good story.
No.
It's always, doom, gloom, crime at the moment, all the rest of it. So, you, and as a young reporter, that can impact you. It impacts you. There's still stories that I have been on that I think about to this day. Just the most horrible tragedies. So I guess in a way, I knew that I wanted to get into sport, and that was sort of just doing the hard yards in general news. I became a court reporter as well, which taught me great discipline, given the accuracy you need to be reporting in a court of law. But yeah, it's been a really rewarding job.
What was one of those stories that sticks with you now today, and why does it stick with you?
There's probably two. There was one involving, and probably because I was young when I was reporting on this yarn, but I was one of the first Melbourne TV journos to be on the scene of just a terrible incident in Mildura. It was a hit run where a car driven by an out of control driver ploughed into a group of kids walking home from a house party. So here you've got a dozen or so kids walking home, having had a great night, warm night in Mildura, as they do all the time. There's this innocence about rural cities and country communities. And out of nowhere, this drunk and out of control driver with his child on his lap plows into this group of kids, and there were fatalities. And in the days that followed the actual accident, you are meeting with, talking to families who have lost their kids who are 15, 16 years of age. So it was that, to this day. Still, it does haunt me. And also there are some of those relatives who are impacted. The mums, the dads, the aunties, the sisters, all that sort of thing that still contact me or I have contact with. And it's really harrowing because their lives changed in an instant on that night. So it's hard not to think about them.
How old were you at the time of that?
I was in my early 20s.
Early 20s. So you're in your early 20s. You're not only reporting,
Yeah.
you're also focusing on your job externally, life externally, but you're also trying to be a figure of empathy and compassion for a whole family, a whole community here as a young 20-year-old.
The industry has improved so much now, because back then it was like, you'll be right. Just get through it, you know, and move on to the next story. But nowadays, you know, TV newsrooms, you know, I'm sure the newspapers and radio stations are the same. They offer you all the support, all the help, all the counselling you need. But at the time, I probably didn't get the chance, or I wasn't offered the chance to unpack that terrible, terrible incident. So it probably stuck with me, and still does. You know, I still think about the victims to this day. So that was certainly one of them. One of the others, which was a huge story, a really consequential story, was in Tasmania, which was, you might recall, the Beaconsfield mine collapse. You were quite young, but effectively 3 miners were trapped underground. Unfortunately, one of them lost their life, but 2 were actually rescued and pulled out of that mine. So there was like this town, Beaconsfield, a town of 100, 200 people, was overrun with media from right around Australia and the world, to be honest, because there was this extraordinary tale playing out in their backyard. And, you know, there was breakfast TV, there was Sunrise there was Carl and Lisa were there, and it was just extraordinary scenes. And I was there as well, and I was, again, quite young, and that still really sticks with me. Ultimately, there was a much happier ending to the story for 2 of the families, at least. There was one still harrowing story, but that still sticks with me as well, probably because of the drama of the whole situation.
I'm curious though, because in those cases, you're arriving in what is one of the most emotionally cataclysmic environments. There's a lot of grief going around, people trying to process something really, really traumatic. And I'm curious if the attitude towards the media back then is probably different to what it was now. And the reason I ask that is because I think, and maybe this is just kind of recency bias, but since COVID, I see a lot of people have way more antagonism towards the media and towards journalists and reporters. I'm curious if there was that same level of kind of reluctance to engage.
There's definitely been a shift, and, you know, can be a bit of a distrust of the mainstream media for whatever reason. I think because, just on that point, because the game now, the media game is 24/7. You know, you cannot escape it. You know, people can get their news any which way. So there is an immediacy to it. So, you know, in doing that, people are craving their news, their headlines, be it on social media, be it on the television, newspapers, radio, more traditionally. So there can be a fatigue set in with the media, and, you know, maybe a little bit of a distrust as well, especially given some of the figures who are quite prominent at the top these days, the likes of Donald Trump, who will say we are fake news or fake media. Going back to Beaconsfield especially, there was initially, I guess the locals got sick of us after a while, because it was a bit of a circus. It became a circus because the town was overrun with people and media. But I think initially they were sort of like, oh, wow, look at this. The footy show, remember the footy show at its heyday? Yeah. They had a big special down there, and Eddie and, you know, Sam and the crew were all down there in their town hall. So they were like, oh, you know, Beaconsfield's on the map, but, you know, probably on the map for all the wrong reasons. So,
wow, yeah. So look, obviously stories there that have played a role in your life then and now, maybe on the more negative side of things, keeps you thinking. Now, it seems like you're the type that has always been going through transitions of workspaces, you know, from one space to another, covering all different parts of you know, sport, media, etc., whether it's in Australia, whether it's outside of Australia. Recently, there's been other changes in your life in the media space. So what have those changes exactly been for you, and how have you now navigated that versus maybe how you navigated changes when you were younger?
Okay. Yeah, well, it's been a pretty monumental change in my life, both professionally and personally, I guess, given the impact it's had on me for so long. But I guess you'd have to rewind almost 5 years now, where I started in radio. So I've always been a TV guy, but I had an approach personally to become the newsreader for Kiss FM's new breakfast show. And I said initially I'll do it for 6 months because I like the idea of it. I didn't like the idea of the hours, and I especially didn't like the idea of working 7 mornings a week, because I've always been a weekend guy in terms of my work. That's just been the gig, right? I've been the weekend sports presenter, and then a gig came up in Sydney as the host of Weekend Today, again Saturday and Sunday. So I knew that to do this brand new shiny radio gig, I had to probably suck it up and do 7 mornings a week. I just thought it'd be a bit of a sugar hit, not bad coin. So let's do it. New challenge. Why not? 6 months. Anyway.
Are you a morning person normally?
So I wasn't. I've never, ever been a morning person. And here I was staring down the barrel of 7, not just 7 mornings a week, but 7 breakfast radio / TV, which is like a alarm around about 4:45 every morning. So for someone who, like me, who was, you had to drag out of bed, especially in my uni days. Yeah.
Same here.
It wasn't pretty. So as I say, thought I'll do it for 6 months. Anyway, fast forward 4 years later, and we're still going 7 mornings a week.
Wow.
And that sort of includes a trip to Sydney on a Friday afternoon, because the Weekend Today show is done out of Sydney. So the week looks horrendous. And we'll get to that in a sec, I guess. But I did make a really difficult decision in the last few weeks, and that was I had a decision to make. That was my first decision, was to decide that I had a decision to make. So it was a real line in the sand moment, because I needed to get my life back. I just couldn't keep operating the way I had. I'm probably a bit of a people pleaser, and I just wanted to keep doing what I was doing and just keep pushing it. So I made the really tough decision to leave Channel 9, which is a place that has given me everything. I owe everything to Channel 9. For 24 years, it's been my entire professional being. So to make that call was really, really difficult. But it was off the back of a pretty crazy schedule, and something that I've only admitted recently was significant burnout as well, which is terrifying.
What was burnout like for you? Do you remember a specific moment where, because you mentioned you had to come to making a decision, or even think about making a decision. Yeah. Do you recall what?
So there was physical burnout, and then there was probably what I call social burnout. I've always been, I've always had great friends, and I love hanging out with my friends and my family. I'm a big family man as well. Physically, first and foremost, I was just getting sick a lot, like ill, pushing the envelope. I had really bad sort of like gut issues. I was getting headaches. I wasn't sleeping well, which is ironic because I was so tired, but I just couldn't sleep. And that was scary. I was getting chest pain. Like that's full on. That's a lot to sort of contemplate. And a bit of anxiety as well. Stress, anxiety. It manifests in different ways in different people. And then socially, which is also pretty distressing, I was just not seeing my mates, and that when I finished work, I was going home because I was exhausted. I'd sit on the couch, go to bed. In fact, every day was set an alarm, go to bed, wake up, go to work, and sometimes go to work radio, go to work TV in the same day, come home at 7 o'clock, make my dinner, sit on the couch, go to bed. That was all I was doing.
And do you recall what kind of things were going through your head during this cycle?
Well, I felt really guilty because I wasn't seeing my mates, and I was just a write-off to my friends. That they weren't even bothering inviting me to birthdays, to whatever it was, because they knew that I wasn't available, and that's heartbreaking, right?
Terrible.
And then even family things, having to miss a nephew's birthday or an anniversary or whatever it was, because I was in Sydney. It was starting to really get to me. So, that coupled with just feeling shit, just that physical burnout was just enough. So, I did know, I knew when I signed up for this that there would come a time where I had to make a decision. I had to give something up. But I probably just, again, because I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I'm just like, so many people had said to me, you're burning the candle at both ends. It's gonna get to you. You are gonna burn out. And I was sort of sitting back going, I've committed to this. I can't burn out. So that actually made the whole issue worse, because I was like, I want to prove them wrong. I'm not going to burn out. But then I burnt out and I crashed. So,
is it a theme across pretty much a large chunk of the media space and the presenter space? Like, do others feel the same way? Could you relate to other people about it?
There's long hours, especially in telly. Your 6 p.m. news is on at 6 p.m. So you're not getting out of there until 7 p.m. So that's a large chunk of your day. Whether you're starting at 6, 7, 8 a.m., it's still a long day. And there's not so much of a take home, like, you're not taking work home with you, but you're always wired a bit differently. You're always checking your phone, your emails, your social media feeds, because you want to be informed. You want to stay updated. So it can be an all-consuming job. And I reckon that's why, what I touched on before, especially in TV, it's become a young person's game, or a younger person's game, because you do get to a certain age and you're like, I think I'm done. I need to do something else.
And so now for you, is the focus predominantly on radio?
Yeah, I'm all in on
solely
radio.
on
radio, which I'm just so excited about, because the show's doing some unreal things. I love, I still love television, always will love TV, and I'm not closing the door completely on it, because I'd be silly to do so. And there might be some special projects that I keep working on, but it is all radio now. So I'm hitching my wagon to that and hoping that all goes well for many, many years to come, because there's this sort of great buzz that I get out of radio. Just like, it's so unscripted. It's very personal. Like, you have to give a lot of yourself on radio. Be it a story you're telling. People follow and are invested in your lives. So it's quite addictive.
So do you think that, because oftentimes when I think of a news presenter, I don't really know much about them other than them potentially breaking a news story.
Yeah.
And only on radio do you usually see an authentic self come out.
Yeah. And TV, for the large part, there are parameters with TV, whether it's time, because there's only an hour of a news bulletin, or it is heavily scripted in terms of it's what's on the auto cue on the teleprompter, for me anyway, as a news presenter. Whereas in radio, there's sort of no real guardrails, and they as in my colleagues will, they're asking more. We're asking more of each other to open up more, because that's what the people who are listening clearly want and love.
What's it like for you to open up to such a wide audience?
It's hard initially, being from that TV background where it's not all about you, whereas in radio, people want to hear stories about, what you did on the weekend, and, because we can relate. Hopefully there's a lot of relatability in that piece. But some of the stories that you tell on air are, daft. Like, I think I spoke this morning about how how about this? I had a weekend off last weekend, which was just an absolute joy. Yeah. Friday night, I got home. I'm like, you know what? I got sent this F1 Lego car. I'm like, I'm going to build a Lego car. Fantastic. I'm like, I felt like I was, 10 years old again.
Yeah.
But I spoke about that on the radio this morning.
That's awesome.
Copped a lot of grief from the guys. But yeah, they were really,
I think they're secretly jealous.
Friday night, you're meant to be a party boy. You're meant to be going out and hitting the clubs.
It's funny you mentioned Lego though. I was listening to a segment the other day. I think it was actually they were calling in and talking about it on 3AW, and they were talking about Lego.
You don't strike me as a 3AW guy.
We are massive. We're massive.
mornings.
At least I am a massive 693 Tom Elliott operator. If I'm honest. Remember growing up. Look,
So you're always outraged, eh?
I'm always outraged.
Yeah.
But we're definitely we're radio operators.
We
ultimately,
are radio operators. Yeah,
we don't discriminate.
No, but they were talking about the creativity of Lego for adults and why it's so popular now. Obviously, just for the purpose of nostalgia, like you mentioned there, but just being able to chill out, do something mindful, not think too deeply, and just take your time with something
I'll
too.
pull you up there.
Yeah.
I was thinking a lot.
I know.
Because it's quite complex.
Yeah, yeah.
There are many different bits you've got get in different places, and
Yeah.
if one's out of place, you
Imagine you lose a
strike.
piece and then
Yeah.
you're trying to find it under the
Yeah.
couch,
I know, yeah.
in the
It
other
was,
room.
I'm still not finished either.
Oh, no,
no.
good. Take your time with it. But great to talk about that on radio. And I think like it almost sounds like it's allowing your personality to shine
Exactly.
through.
And there's, there might be someone sitting in their car right now
Yeah.
going, oh, yeah, I'd have no shame in admitting I was sitting on my couch making a Lego F1 car myself,
But do you feel like in comparison to being in the newsroom, and it's not to say one job is better than the other, but do you feel like you're absolutely in a space now where you can allow your like true authentic self to shine through?
Yeah, I think so. There was a piece that we did a few years back and it came up out of nowhere. It was just an admission from me. They got me sort of in a moment where I sort of was reflecting on air about how I was feeling when I was doing this chaotic travel to Sydney. So for context, I would finish my radio week, as in at Nova 100, and then I'd jump on a plane to Sydney to host the Weekend Today show. So jump on the plane Friday afternoon, spend Saturday, Sunday there, fly back at midday on Sunday and read the 6 p.m. news at Channel 9 on the Sunday night. Like they're just big hours and you can see why I was burning out. But when I landed in Sydney, and I probably didn't know many people at Sydney in the early days, so I would be flying in, checking into a hotel, spending my night in a hotel, going to work, coming back, into the hotel, going to work, then flying home. So I felt really isolated, and I admitted as much on radio. I'm like, I just don't feel this sort of need or urge to socialize. So I was becoming a real hermit and, a real introvert when I was in Sydney, which is the polar opposite to what I am in Melbourne. And I admitted on air that I felt really lonely and, and that it's hard as an adult to make adult friends, because the last thing I wanted to do was, randomly get up. I know no one in Sydney, go to a pub, strike up a chat with whoever might be there. It's just hard, that whole piece. So I admitted that on air. It just sort of came out of nowhere. And the phone lines slid up, just like people like, I feel exactly like that. But, at home here in Melbourne, because this. And there were just so many people who it obviously struck a chord with, who had struggled in their own lives making friends, as an adult. They, had this horrible feeling of loneliness. So we were able to talk about it on radio, get feedback from listeners, and sort of we put on a big event for a whole people who sort of felt isolated.
Oh, wow.
And it was really cool.
How did it actually feel getting that support? Because I can't imagine admitting that on air would have been easy.
It wasn't easy. But again, it just came up pretty organically. And clearly there was something in my being that felt the need to talk about it, which is pretty cool as well.
Sick.
And it's obviously it helped a lot of people, or a portion of people, which is really cool as well.
Do you feel like now a lot of your social life and the things you were missing out on, like you mentioned, and craving have now slopped back into your life?
Not yet, because I've still got a couple more weeks in this mad sort of 7 morning a week scramble that I'm doing. But, I've now probably dealt with having made the decision I've made, I've probably dealt a lot with, the anxiety, the stress, the sort of physical issues that I was dealing with because I've made the decision. And I'm at peace with the decision. In fact, I'm really excited by life after Channel 9 and being able to just sink my teeth into radio. And I can sort of now open up the diary and go, oh, hey, Saturday night free. Yeah. Let's hit the clubs.
Are you much of a party goer?
If I said no, I'd be lying.
You'd be lying?
Yeah, I do love a party.
You love a party?
I love a dirty nightclub.
You love a dirty
Yeah,
nightclub?
yeah.
I'm curious though, because it sounds like when one door closes, another door opens. And
Nightclub doors?
Well, you know what? In Clint's
Each
case,
their
potentially,
own.
each to their own. Specifically, what do those new opportunities look like for you? Because I'm not sure. You described briefly before the sacrifices you had to make and the effect of burnout. But I'm also curious, what are you hoping to introduce into your life?
Well, I think, and I said this on air a couple of weeks ago, in making this decision, I want to be, there for my family, my friends a lot more, which is probably a really primary example of that. But also, I'm not saying I'm getting on in age, but I'm getting older, right? Hopefully a bit wiser as well. I still see myself as someone who I want to become a dad one day. So, I haven't been able to really have a relationship in the past 4 or 5 years because I've just been motivated chiefly by work, which is fine. And, I love my job and I'm thankful for my opportunities, but one day, I think I'm good with kids. I want to be a dad. So I think that's probably a goal, or something that I really want to accomplish. Because I see my nephew. I've got 2 beautiful nephews, 2 nieces who are a bit older, but my nephews who are 5 and 3, and they're unreal. They're so much fun to be around, and I think I'm pretty good with them as well. So I think that's something I think about a lot.
Has it been difficult to try and initiate or even maintain like a long-term relationship given
100%
the work you're in?
Yeah. And always been and this isn't an excuse for being perennially single, but I am perennially single for a reason, because it is hard to have a relationship when you're working every weekend, when right now I'm doing 7 mornings a week and the alarm's going off at 4:45. At the end of the day, all I want to do is crash and sleep. So it is. It's hard.
How have you managed to fit in your fitness and lifestyle? Because you're a fit guy, and I think you've spoken, previously about
hold on.
gym and stuff like that. And we've seen your transformation online as well. So where the hell are you fitting that in?
So that was actually crazy. So that was last year. I did this through my PT. I was invited to do a bit of a challenge with Ilan with Men's Health. Yeah. And I had a bit of extra chub, so I wanted to lose a little bit. So ended up losing about 10, maybe 12 kilos, which was hugely satisfying. But good question. So, and this is where the regime, it just got silly and maybe contributed to a bit of that burnout, was because, and get this, I have to arrive at radio about 5:30, generally speaking. Not as golden rule, but around that, for a 6 a.m. start. So I was training before that. So I'd be like out of bed, the alarm would go off, maybe if I'm pushing it, 4:15, and I'd be at the gym at 4:30 to do a 45-minute to an hour session with my PT, who was, to his credit, there every morning waiting for me.
Wow.
Like, just phenomenal effort from him as well. So I was really, really pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. It was, it wasn't fun, but it was satisfying.
What did the workouts look like? Was it like a HIIT workout? Was it basically weightlifting?
It was predominantly weights, and then I tend to swim to try and switch off. I've always been a swimmer. I grew up a swimmer. So I just go to the pool for my cardio and just cut some laps, because chasing a black line on the bottom of the pool sends some people crazy, notably swimmers. But for me, it was really good to switch off, put the phone away, and just cut some laps. It was good.
Wow. I'm intrigued to know, because, you've covered like World Cups, you've covered Olympics. There would be a fair share of elite sportsmen that you've come across, being a sports nuffer yourself, Do you have a wild story, one that sticks with you, with whether it's someone you've covered, whether it's someone that you've met, or just a random story with an elite sports person that'll stick with you?
Probably none that I can tell on this podcast, even though I'd like to give you the exclusive. I've had so many cool pinch me moments. When it comes to events, I've done, I've done AFL Grand Finals, but then, the Australian Open tennis, or been on court introducing and interviewing the likes of, Rafa, the likes of Novak, Serena, all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Maybe we've crossed over, Clint, because I've worked at the Aussie Open for 8 years on court services, on the court as well for a couple of the men's finals matches. So cool. I recall there was probably moments where you were presenting and I was folding towels in the background, but it is pretty cool, especially with Rafa.
Do great work.
They're a good team, aren't they?
So, and then in terms of overseas, I've been to the last 3 World Cups. So Brazil, Russia, and Qatar, which is, as a football fan, I'm just like, that is the pinnacle, right? And probably the most extraordinary person I've spent time with or interviewed, well, there's 2. Christiano Ronaldo. So I got the chance to interview him and actually kick a football around with Christiano.
Oh, God.
So that was sick. And the other one was, who I probably really enjoyed more, was Bex.
Yeah.
So David Beckham.
Oh, wow.
So got the chance, probably going back 10 years plus now, he was here in Melbourne. He was actually playing an exhibition match for Galaxy, I believe, at the time. He might have been playing Victory v Galaxy at Marvel Stadium. And in the days leading up to that, he did a hospital visit, a school visit, and then as part of that, there was a clinic as well that he put on for kids. And I got to sit down and interview with him. But I was sort of tracking him and his team for half a day. So spent a bit of time with the great man. And it was cool because he was just, he had the Rolex watch on, he had the, all the coolest accessories and gadgets and whatever. He lives life as a king. Yeah. But also as a bloke, he is he was very personable, right? So he was a bit of an open book, but he was also asking me questions about myself as well, which was really, really lovely. And that's, I think, the mark of a good person is if they're sort of A, intrigued by you, and B, prepared to sort of listen to, and learn a lot more about the people you're speaking to. So he was great. He was unreal.
Wow.
I suppose it's a really good metric because a lot of people can't fake care.
Yeah.
And, if you're coming across an athlete who's quite personal, and might I say quite rare, because most athletes they're probably sick of the limelight in a lot of ways. They don't have the privacy. So for an athlete to actually ask you.
Yeah. When you're at the top of your game, like he was, or like, tennis players, swimmers, whatever you're doing, AFL players, it can be very selfish. You have to be selfish
of course.
You're making the sacrifices for you, for your family. So, I get that. I get that. But been to Olympics, which has been cool. I was at the Paris Games last year, which was fun.
Especially as a massive swimming fan.
I saw a Cricket World Cup in India.
Wow. Oh, that would have been
British Open golf. Like it's been very enjoyable. Like I'm really, really lucky.
Is there any bucket list item that you haven't ticked off yet that you still want to?
I'm a bit of a political nut, right?
Oh, yeah?
So, I love the cut and thrust of, politics, be it sort of even like state politics, federal politics, but also US politics. I love US politics.
Always have?
Always have.
It's a blood sport.
I know it is. I know. But I would love to be on a campaign, like on a campaign bus with, the media, following, be it Trump, be it Harris, be it whoever the next Democratic candidate is. I've always loved that.
So I'm curious, sorry to cut you off, if a news organisation came to you and said, hey, we've got this offer for you to come and report from Washington, D.C., White House reporter. Yeah. It's going to be a rough schedule, but given your interest in politics.
I mean, yeah, I'd say
You do it?
yes, but I don't know if the Nova audience would be really on board with that.
Fair. We'll zoom in from like, I don't know what time, it'd be like 5 p.m. there.
Yeah. And the other bucket list thing is I'd love to get to a Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
Just to be part of it. Probably more because of the tailgate sort of parties that you see and you hear so much about, and the halftime entertainment. You know, it'd be really, really unreal.
Yeah, massive cultural difference, isn't it? Just
Yeah.
how they incorporate the fun, the party.
But also the commerciality of it as well is just obscene.
I don't know if I like that aspect, if I'm honest.
Really?
That's why I love English Premier League more, because I find tradition. There's more something traditional about, like, I was watching Liverpool this morning.
Yeah.
We
Sympathies
lost.
to you.
Thank you. And
is that Old Trafford or?
no, it was at Anfield and lost 2-1.
How did that happen? To Man United?
Yeah, I think we're in a bit of a decline. But one thing I've always appreciated about even AFL and English sport relative to like the North American sport, it doesn't feel as commercialized, like it is, yet. And it's going down that path. So there's like, and that's even why I like things like cricket, like Test cricket, because it doesn't feel as commercialized. It still feels like it's a very organic sport.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens in that space. Before we finish up, I'm really curious to know, is there anything that you haven't told that you've witnessed, maybe from like a big event that isn't too privy to the public? So,
like a behind the scenes.
Yeah, like a
type
behind the
BTS.
scenes. Yeah.
I did go to an amazing party, a rap party for the Australian Olympic team post the London Games. So what was that? Was that 2010?
2012.
2012, of course.
2012.
And it was called The Last Lap. And I saw some things in that party that were just like athletes post Olympics, single athletes with all these endorphins.
Doing non-athletic things.
I think it'd be ultra-athletic
very
things.
athletic things. So let me just say that they're a horny bunch.
Yeah. Can't imagine.
I'm not surprised that the Olympic Village goes...
Yeah, it goes all right.
It goes all right. Not that I've been there, but you know.
Well, we hear rumours that all the dingers are gone by like day 2 or
the
whatever.
dingers.
Yeah. So, look, no surprise. But no, again, before we wrap up, Clint, it's been a pleasure. But I also just want to ask, as part of a big theme of our show is... if you did have any words of advice to your younger self, to someone going through their 20s, navigating whether it's a career change or not knowing even what they want to do in their career, what would be the piece of advice you would give to someone who is looking for a little bit of inspiration in their 20s?
I guess never say no to an opportunity, or what I do, I think I've got to where I have because I've always sort of been willing to make a sacrifice or two, and professionally that's held me in really good stead. But to counter that as well, also know when to hit the brakes and go, hey, I need some time for myself, because I've discovered that a little bit later in life. Really, really thankful for all my opportunities, but also know when to dedicate a little bit of time to yourself, because it's so important.
Clint, thank you so much for joining the Big Bros podcast. When do you finish up at 9, out of curiosity?
You want to come to my farewell party?
If you're inviting us.
You know that Olympic party I was telling you about? It won't be anything.
Okay, that's all right.
Mid-November.
Mid-November.
So I think I've got three or four sort of weeks to go.
Well,
Fantastic.
On behalf of Jeremy and I, we wish you nothing but the best on this new journey and chapter in your life, and we're keen to see
a Demon Premiership
as well.
Awesome. With a sprinkle of Carlson, hopefully.
Oh, you're no chance.
Thanks,
awesome.
Mate.